Inravio.com. Inravio.com.
Hello, everybody. This is Joe Larson, and welcome to the 5 on Racing Show. We got a lot to talk about tonight, as always. A little heads up. We had in Where Are They Now? We're going to take a look at the career of Ryan Preece, former NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour champion, and also a current part-time Xfinity driver. And we're also going to take a look back at some of the highlights in the career of Jeff Gordon, multi-time Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series champion, now turned broadcaster. Going to give you an update on Mike Titerbach, the TQ driver who was injured in the indoor races at Atlantic City. We'll let you know how he's going. And we got some NASCAR news. Another small weekly racing series track was purchased. Thank goodness it wasn't sold. And we're going to talk about the Harvick penalties that stemmed out of the race in Vegas, and we got some updates or results from Phoenix, which was this past weekend. So we got a lot to talk about. So we're going to get right into it. We're going to get into Ryan Preece, like I said earlier, former NASCAR Whelen Modified champion, current Xfinity driver, although part-time. Ryan Preece. Ryan Preece is the 2007 started racing in the Northeastern Midget Association. And in 2008, Ryan finished third at Monadnock Speedway in New Hampshire. He moved to the Whelen Modified Tour in 2008 with his first win at Martinsville Speedway in Virginia, which is one of the toughest tracks on the circuit back then. And from 2009 and 2012, he was the runner-up in the Whelen Modified points. And you knew he was going to be somebody knocking on the door of a championship, which came in 2013 with 4 wins in 14 events. In 2015, he drove for Ed and Connie Partridge in a Whelen Modified Tour, and that seemed to be like a marriage made in heaven, successful right out of the gate. But in 2013, stepping back, it was his first Xfinity ride, finishing 24th after starting 27th at the New Hampshire Motor Speedway, driving for Tommy Baldwin Jr. Tommy Baldwin out of Long Island, son of the late, great Tom Baldwin Sr. 2014, he had 2 more races for Tom Baldwin Racing, and his best finish being 14th. In 2015, his first Cup race, driving for Tom Baldwin Racing at New Hampshire's Motor Speedway, finishing 32nd. He raced 4 more Cup races at the end of 2015 for Premium Motorsports, who was also a partner on the first Cup race with Tommy Baldwin Racing. 2016, he joined and drove for the Xfinity car owned by JD Motorsports full-time. They parted ways at season end. JD Motorsports wanted wins right from the get-go. It's tough to do in any series for any driver. 2017, back to Eddie Partridge in the Whelen Modified Tour. And in 2018, an opportunity arose where he signed with Joe Gibbs Racing part-time for 2018, running 10 events. And I am sure that's going to depend on where sponsorship comes looking forward. Ryan Preece cut his teeth in the SK-type modifieds, or SK modifieds, up in Connecticut at the Stafford Motor Speedway and up in Stafford Springs, Connecticut. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to tell you a little story about Ryan Preece. Ryan came onto the scene while I was working for the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour. And there was an event at Stafford. He was battling one of the toughest competitors at the time, Todd Zegedy. And they were running 1-2. The white flag dropped. They went into turn one. In the middle of turn 1 and 2, Ryan gave Todd a bump. That bump sent Todd Zegedy all over the place. Ryan comes flying down the backstretch, turns 3 and 4, crosses the start-finish line for his first win. No. NASCAR tower personnel felt that Todd was roughed up by Ryan. They put Ryan Preece to the back of the pack for aggressive driving, taking that win away. Looking back on that event, I have seen tougher bumps and bangs going into turn 1 or turn 3 with the checker flag coming out, and nothing happened. But Ryan, when he pulled down pit road, I walked over to him and I could see the disappointment in his eyes. I could see the hurt, the anger. You know, he was racing hard and got caught up. And I remember I put my hand on his chest. In the picture, he's still sitting in the car. I put my hand on his chest and I said, Ryan, you didn't get this one. You're going to get some others. And trust me, one of these days, you're going to be driving with the big boys and you'll forget all about this. Well, one day we're at Riverhead Raceway. He was there for a tour race to drive for Eddie and Connie Partridge. And I went up to him after the drivers' meeting, and it was just announced that he was going to drive part-time for Joe Gibbs in the Xfinity Series. And I said, Ryan, remember that talk we had? And I said Thompson to him. And he goes, you mean the one at Stafford? I said, yeah. He goes, I'll never forget that talk. Ryan Preece, a young guy, good competitor, good driver, speaks well, is good to the fans, good to the press. I only wish him more success moving forward. I'll tell you what, I called it on Bubba Wallace that he was going to get a full-time Riding Cup. Ryan Preece is the next one that's going to make the move. And he came out of New England, out of the modifieds. Remember that name, Ryan Preece. This name you're going to remember for a long time, Jeff Gordon. Jeff Gordon came out of sprint cars from California. And I'll tell you, when I look back, Jeff Gordon was born in '71, and when I first started following him, he was just a kid. And I remember him driving in what was called the Busch Series back then. But, when you look at him, you look at Jeff Gordon, it's amazing when you look at his career. Now, he's an announcer now for Fox and NASCAR, and also a top executive for Hendrick Motorsports and former driver of the Hendrick Motorsports number 24, which I'm sure I didn't have to tell you folks. Now, for 23 full-time seasons, he drove for Rick Hendrick and Hendrick Motorsports in the 24. And when you look at that, that's unheard of today. It's just unheard of. There's no commitment. People are ready to bail out, go for the quick cash. And Jeff Gordon stuck with Hendrick Motorsports, and I guess Hendrick Motorsports stuck with Jeff Gordon, who retired after the 2015 season, after those 23 full-time seasons, and then came back for a race or 2 or 3, driving for Dale Earnhardt Jr. as a replacement in the '88 car while Dale was recovering from his concussion issues. And he didn't miss a beat. And I guess it's like riding a bicycle. You can stay away for a while, but once you get right back in, you're good to go. And when you look back, Gordon's NASCAR beginnings was in what they called the Busch Series or Xfinity Series today for Bill Connerty, racing for him in the beginning, and then moving to Bill Davis Racing, winning 3 races there. And there's a picture of Jeff Gordon who was just breaking into the stock cars because he came out of sprint cars before that. He began full-time racing in the Cup for Hendrick Motorsports in 1993, winning 4 championships with Hendrick. And there's Jeff in his sprint car back when he was back in his Indiana days and driving those sprint cars. But he has 4 Cup championships. He has 1995, 1997, 1998, and most recently 2001. He is 3rd on the all-time win list with 93. He is also the co-owner with Hendrick Motorsports, or Rick Hendrick, on the 48 car driven by 7-time champion Jimmy Johnson. Gordon started his racing career at 5 years old, racing quarter midgets. By age 6, he had 35 victories. In 1986, he began driving sprint cars, dirt sprint cars, winning 3 events. In 1987, he became a licensed USAC driver, United States Auto Club, at the age of 16, being the youngest driver ever to be given a USAC license. His family, which included his stepfather, John Bickford, and his mom, Carol Ann, moved from Vallejo, California to Pittsburgh, Indiana to give Jeff a shot at sprint cars. In 1989, he was the USAC Midget Rookie of the Year, and in 1991, Jeff Gordon captured the USAC Silver Crown and at age 20 became the youngest driver to win a championship in that series. Between 1989 and 1992, he finished in the top 3 in 22 of his 40 events in the USAC Midget Racing Association. Gordon married former Miss Sprint Cup model Brooke Seeley after meeting in 1993. Their relationship was kept a secret because there was a NASCAR rule. The drivers can't date the Winston Cup or the Winston Cup models. They cannot. It was a violation. So it was a big secret, and they kind of snuck around. Then finally, they got married. In 1994, he proposed and married her that in November. The marriage ended, however, in 2002, and shortly thereafter, Gordon married Ingrid Vanderbosch, which was in November of 2006. He settled his divorce with Brooke, giving her $15.3 million in the settlement. Now, Jeff Gordon made most of his money in the beginning racing. Brooke wanted a big chunk of that. She wanted the houses, the plane, the yacht, properties, business entities. And Jeff Gordon's argument was he risked his life racing stock cars and sprint cars to build that life. And although she did get a chunk of his fortune, which she was entitled to, she did not get everything she wanted. Now, Jeff Gordon is the owner of numerous businesses throughout the United States. He is one of those guys who realized, hey, this racing gig isn't going to last forever. And he invested. He was smart. He had good advisors. So Jeff Gordon was one of those guys that when he came up, and I remember him driving the Baby Ruth car, and I think we had some pictures of that when he was in what was called the Busch Series. I can remember looking at him and watching him and saying, this guy's going to be all right. This guy's he's going to make it happen. And he did. In 25 years in the Cup Series, he competed in 805 events with 93 wins. In the Xfinity Series, he had 5 years there with 73 starts with 5 victories there. He was also a podium finisher in the Rolex 24 Hours of Daytona in 2007, finishing 3rd. Jeff Gordon, as we said, is currently in the announcer's booth with the Fox Sports and NASCAR, announcing the races, a little color commentary, and he's doing a nice job with that. He slid right into that, and I wish him continued success on his career, even though it's as an announcer and a car owner. Who knows who's going to end up in the 48 car next? You know, Jimmy Johnson is still a young guy, could still make it happen, but you know, he owns the team with Mr. Hendrick, and I'm sure that they'll be going with another driver. I'm going to say in the next 3 to 5 years. Anyway, Before we go to commercial, this Mike Totterback, a little update from Mike. As you know, we've been talking about Mike ever since his accident at the Atlantic City Boardwalk Hall in the TQ car. Mike is recovering. He is recovering from his injuries. He's still in not very good condition. He was moved from the Atlantic City Hospital to a hospital closer to home in Brick, New Jersey. The drive on it for his wife to go to Atlantic City every day, day in and out, to be by her husband's side, was long, was hard, draining, emotional, and his young son was unable to make those trips due to school. With Mike being transferred to a local hospital where he can get the treatment that is needed, will help him to be able to visit his dad. He's still paralyzed. The head trauma is still not good. There's still brain bleeds. And all we could ask for is prayers for Mike and his family. I know some fundraising efforts have been set up for Mike. If you've ever been injured in a race car and injured the way he was injured, the medical bills just mount and mount and mount. And there's things that have to be done. And you can't say how much is that going to cost. You just do it, and you worry about paying later. So in the social media, there's some links to how you could help out if you so wish. But you know what? It's not always about the money. Sometimes it's that little word to the man upstairs. And if he gets inundated with enough of those, who knows? Who knows what could happen? Mike Totterback, a tough competitor, always with the best of safety equipment. But that day, that wreck, nothing but nothing was going to prevent him from being injured the way he did. I was there. I was just off the straightaway part of the turn, and as soon as he hit, I knew. And I've seen a lot of wrecks in my day, and although it wasn't violent, it was just the way he hit. So again, our prayers to Mike Totterback, his family, and it's one of our own, Anyway, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about some NASCAR news and some of the stuff that's going on in the world of NASCAR and the Modified Series when we come back.
Hey, I was going to say what's up for some reason. Hey, we're Set It Up, and you're watching the Inravio TV network.
Village Music Shop of Mastic, 1-800-HEY-DUDE, your full-service store with personalized attention, school band instrument rentals and sales, music instruction on all instruments for all styles and age groups, for guitars, drums, amplifiers, PA systems, and accessories. It's Village Music Shop, 1495 Montauk Highway in Mastic. Call 1-800-HEY-DUDE or go to villagemusicshop.com.
Hi there, this is Buddy from Less Than Jake, and you are listening to Inravio TV. You're probably watching it too.
The world of advertising has changed. Radio, TV, and newspaper revenues have declined drastically. Why? Because businesses have realized that advertising return on investment isn't what it used to be. So what can we do about it? Well, that's easy. Advertise online. Own a local restaurant, real estate agency, or even a national retail chain? Whatever your business, Inravio can get your message out there. And we can do it at a fraction of the cost. Call today and see the difference for yourself. This isn't TV. This isn't radio. This is Inravio.com.
Hey, welcome back. Hey, a little NASCAR news. NASCAR Whaler Modified Tour driver Rowan Pennick will not be in the race, the opening race at the Myrtle Beach Speedway in South Carolina. It was announced last week that Rowan told RaceDayConnecticut.com that he recently had emergency surgery that will keep him out of the event at Myrtle Beach Speedway. Pennick could possibly miss the Whelen Modified Tour Icebreaker at the Thompson Motorsports Park in Connecticut in the first week of April as well. Rowan Pennick's recent surgery and how it will affect his racing will be taken day by day. There's no information on what kind of surgery he had. I don't want to speculate, but Rowan Pennick, driving for the Bowler family, the Car 3, also known as Old Blue, will be missed. And I'll tell you, it's not often that the 3 car has a different driver than the person who's going to be driving it. Very rare. I've seen them miss events when their drivers couldn't compete for whatever reason. So it's going to be interesting. And if somebody does get that ride for at least Myrtle Beach, I know they need to come with a boatload of money. Rowan Pennick races for the Bowlers. He raced in a family car with his dad in charge there for a long time. But, you know, when you get an opportunity to drive for a team like the Bowlers, sometimes you got to say, Dad, I got to do what I got to do, and go do it. And Dad being an understanding, I know his dad, Mark Pennick, a great guy, always helped me out anytime I needed something, anything, whether it, just anything. Good, and his stepmom too. Good people. So we wish Rowan Pennick well on the road to recovery from the surgery. Good kid, tough competitor. You look at that picture, that guy's intense. And I can remember one day, don't you ever smile? And he got like a half a grin. You're like, yeah. So good guy, and I wish him well. Anyway, Kevin Harvick. As we know, Kevin Harvick is tearing it up this year, 3 straight wins in a row. We're going to talk more about that later. But his win at Vegas was possibly tainted. And what do we say about it? Well, there was some question, and it came from a competitor that was driving behind him, questioning the flex in his rear windshield. That as he followed behind him, the windshield was flexing, which is putting the air, I saw pictures, and if you saw it, you know what I'm talking about. It looked like there was like something inside the window pulling it down, which moves the air around, and I guess it gives you a little more downforce. So the car was taken to Concord at the R&D Center for NASCAR in Concord, North Carolina. And after further inspection, NASCAR didn't like what they saw, and the team has been penalized. It was announced that the team will lose 20 driver and 20 owner points. They will lose 7 playoff points. That's big. The crew chief, Rodney Childers, is fined $50,000. That's a lot of money. And the car chief, Robert Smith, was suspended for 2 races. Now, $50,000 fine to the crew chief. I don't know what the crew chief makes. They all make a different amount. It's all contractual, and it's based on a lot of factors. But when I hear these types of fines that NASCAR is giving out, $50,000 here, $75,000 there, A, who really pays it? I mean, does that guy go write a personal check for that? And B, where does that money go? There was an old rumor, story, whatever, fine money went into the point fund. These guys, their point funds are millions and millions of dollars, and they're paid by the sponsors of the fund. And the other part of the point fund, which some people don't know, is that 3% of the total purse paid out, whether it's on the cup level or the weekly racing series, you know, the Wheel and All-American racing series, goes into the point fund, which kind of pays that. So these guys are running for multi-million-dollar purses, so the point fund's already huge. So $50,000 is not going to add a lot to the point fund. I would hope that these fines that get handed out are donated to a charity that could use the money. And because it's kind of funny, you know, here I am, I'm the host of 5 Off, 5 On, and you do something bad, and I'm going to fine you, and I get the money. It's a little short-sighted there. It's a little, you know, how do you do that? See, so they can make up all these kind of rules for this money, and like I said, who pays? Does the guy go home to his wife and go, well, hon, I just got fined $50,000, I need a check, or does the team owner pay it? Now, I've had my share of fines from NASCAR over the years, back in my competition days, and I was lucky enough that my sponsors just wrote the check. You know, I'd go to them with the notice. I got a fine, and when I was like, he get his book out. How much? He just give me a check, you know. But and I'll tell you a quick story about fines, and I don't know if I ever shared this. You know, I had a situation where I'm at my weekly racing track, and I'm the head guy, and a real big thing occurred. Big, ugly. The guy came in my office, one of the NASCAR competitors, came into my office after I didn't allow a protest. And long story why I didn't allow it, we'll talk about that when we talk about cheating and breaking rules. But he comes in and he is livid because they did their homework. But how do you take a car that's run for a couple of years, couple of seasons, if not more, that's been checked by our tech officials time and time again, and here's the catch. The head sponsor, the biggest sponsor of this car, is also a track sponsor. And yeah, it's tough, you know, so I was told to let it go, and 22 figurehead, I did, but I lived. Anyway, so the guy who instituted the protest comes to my office, and he literally turns my desk upside down. Upside down. There were papers thrown all over, shelves knocked over, and I just said, look, you got to go and make other plans for at least next week because your racing is over for a while. So his car owner comes in, the guy who owns his race car comes in and goes, I need to know right now, what the fine and penalty is going to be because if I'm not going to be racing, I'm not going to fix the car. I said, you really want to know what's going to be out there? If you have to know right now, before I talk to NASCAR, the fine is 10 years suspension and $10,000 penalty. Goes, that's ridiculous. Or says, well, that's what it is right now, and you need to know. So off he goes. When I tell you, within a half hour, they came back with a check from a person, I'm not going to say who, but if you're familiar with Riverhead Raceway, there's only a couple of people that have that kind of money that could just say, here you go, and I just laughed. I just laughed because, you know, the penalties don't mean that much, you know, especially when your sponsors are paying it. But anyway, that's how it goes with these penalties, and I think some of them are a bit ridiculous. You know, I'm all for the points being taken away. I think suspending a car chief or a crew chief, the guy could buy a ticket and sit in the stands and still call the shots. Because you can't stop him from sitting in the stands. You can stop him from going in the garage. You can stop him from being on pit road, but you can't stop him from going in the stands. And you can't stop him from going in their sponsor suite up in the roof and watching the race and with that radio calling the shots. So it'll be interesting to see how that will pan out in the future. Anyway, I said earlier, another track was sold. Thank goodness it was sold to a guy who wants to keep it a racetrack. Lee USA Speedway in Lee, New Hampshire, has been purchased by New Hampshire businessman Norman Wren Jr. Wren purchased the 3/8-mile track from Red McDonald and his wife Judy. The McDonalds have owned Lee USA Speedway for the last 33 years. Wren is in the propane business and is also a successful stock car racer who started racing in 1983 and has a handful of local championships and a bushel full of wins. It's nice to see that a racer has purchased a racetrack just as similar as Eddie and Connie Partridge did on Long Island with Riverhead Raceway, because a racer knows how to handle race car drivers, knows what you need to do to put on a race show and how to have a racing event. So I'll tell you what, it's nice to see that the track was bought by a businessman that was into racing and not a businessman who's into condos and things of that nature. So Lee USA Speedway had the opportunity to go there a few times. Up there with a late model back in the mid-90s, had a great time and were treated like gold by Red McDonald and his wife Judy. And you know, those things stick in your head. You know, you remember who was good to you. And you also, when you look at NASCAR, what's being sold and bought, the rumors again, is NASCAR for sale? Well, what are you buying? If you do buy NASCAR, you're buying a name, you're buying all the tracks, because the tracks are owned by International Speedway Corp. Same people on the board at NASCAR and International Speedway Corp, but do you get the tracks with them? Do you get the licensing? It'll be interesting. Estimates say that the cost to purchase NASCAR will be between $3 and $5 billion. That's a billion with a B. I'll tell you what. You know, the France family has controlled NASCAR since 1948. And it's not the same NASCAR that Big Bill France incorporated back then. It's definitely not the same NASCAR, and is certainly a different type of leadership in there. It used to be all family. A lot of other people now are involved, and they're all about making money. And you shouldn't want to be making money. You want to make money. But you know what? You got to put on a good show. You can't just keep going to the bank and taking it out, because eventually you got to run out. Trust me, you got to run out. And when that happens, it's not good. So anyway, with that being said, I see some of these guys, some of the old tracks are in danger when the original owner retires or passes away. 22 figure 8, you're 100% correct on that. And NASCAR, Jay Slice, was much better before Brian France took the helm. But I guess he's doing the best he can with what he has. And, you know, this is when you go into business, and take this lesson from me. You don't go into a business that has been successful and get rid of all the brains with the guys with the dirt under their fingernails who built the sport, and bring in all your buddies and your friends and your advisors, because you know nothing about the business, so you got to be advised by people who don't know anything about the business either. Anyway, we're going to take a break, and we come back. We're going to talk about some of the stuff that went on in Phoenix, all the NASCAR stuff. And I just want a little shout out to a couple of lovely ladies that are very close to me when we come back.
Hi, I'm Remington.
I'm Emerson.
And I'm Sebastian.
We're Palais Royale, and you're watching Inravio TV.
There we go.
The world of advertising has changed. Radio, TV, and newspaper revenues have declined drastically. Why? Because businesses have realized that advertising return on investment isn't what it used to be. So what can we do about it? Well, that's easy. Advertise online. Own a local restaurant, real estate agency, or even a national retail chain? Whatever your business, Inravio can get your message out there, and we can do it at a fraction of the cost. Call today and see the difference for yourself. This isn't TV. This isn't radio. This is Inravio.com.
Hey, this is Chris Jake, and if Inravio.com spots you at an event wearing this bracelet, they will give you $100.
Village Music Shop of Master. 1-800-HEY-DUDE. Your full-service store with personalized attention, school band instrument rentals and sales, music instruction on all instruments for all styles and age groups, for guitars, drums, amplifiers, PA systems, and accessories. It's Village Music Shop. 1495 Montauk Highway in Mastic. Call 1-800-HEY-DUDE or go to villagemusicshop.com.
Hi, this is Mike Jarecki from My Race News, and you're watching the Inravio TV network.
Hey, welcome back. Welcome back. Yeah, let's look through the chat room. The chat room is pretty active tonight. Welcome, everybody, and thank you. You know, Jay Slice, always my good buddy. You know, yeah, he doesn't mix any words, Jay Slice. He goes, you know, how do you have somebody that never built or raced a car run the show? I'll tell you what. I agree. I'm a firm believer that you come up through the ranks. I really am. Nobody should walk right into any business, even if it's your family business, walk right in and you're at the top. Brian France went to school, did his thing, whatever, part of the family business recently, you know, within the last 10 years. Where was he before that? When Big Bill France started NASCAR, his son Bill Jr. was right there with him, every step of the way, side by side even throughout the 60s and the 70s. And when you look at that, when you look at that, he learned the business. And the other thing was you saw them. They were visible. They were in the garage area. They talked to the teams. They talked to the drivers. They talked to the owners. And when they talked to the owners, hey, what do you guys need from us? What do you need from us? Now you have a head of NASCAR that could probably walk through the grandstands and not be recognized. Very rarely do you see Brian France down in the garage area talking to the teams. You know, these are the people, and I've always said this, and at any level, you have to go to the people who are doing it, who are putting it on. What do you guys need from us? What can we, the organization, do to make your job better so you can put on a better show? And, you know, it was such a, how do you put it? You know, that's one of the complaints. And when you look at the stage racing, I understand what stage racing is intended to become. I understand that. It's to make every aspect of the race interesting. It's to take something that people fall asleep with, and let's face it, you know, think about it. It's Sunday, you worked all week and you're tired, you did your chores around your house, and you turn the race on, and how many of us fall asleep? Now, we watch the beginning, we're all excited, and we're asleep, and then it comes towards the end, you start waking up, and because the announcers are trying to make it exciting, and you wake up. So stage racing did that. And when you look back before this chase and the playoffs, you know, these guys ran for championships. And you know what? I understand that they don't want somebody clinching it with 4 races left because who's going to watch? I don't know. Let's see who finishes in the top 10. Let's see who finishes in the top 20. Let's see if you got this young kid coming up like Jeff Gordon did in 1992 and see how he runs. And when you look at that, you got to say to yourself, where are they going with this sport? They need to go back to stock cars. That's what they need to go back to. Not with these fabricated bodies that, when they're side by side, undecaled, unlettered, and unpainted, all look exactly the same. And yeah, when you go through the template line and the template drops in and the lasers measure, yeah, they got to switch the Ford, the Chevy, the Toyota, and all of that kind of good stuff. But you can't tell them apart until you get the decals on. So yeah, all right, so you put the light decal on, you put the grill thing on, and you put the factory emblem on, whether it's Ford, Chevy, or Toyota. And oh yeah, that's right, that's a Camry, yeah. Now, I don't know. Maybe somebody, like when they're running the Taurus, can somebody show me a two-door Taurus? Because NASCAR had one. You know, and the Camry, I don't know, the Camry's a four-door, and it's also front-wheel drive. Can you show me that? No, go back to stock cars and let them get all the horsepower they can, and as long as they're within the limits, and let them play with their spring and shock package, and let them do their downforce. Put the race back in the steering wheel and the pedals. Let the drivers race. Because what are they doing? They're driving side by side, they're driving bumper to bumper, and nobody wants to touch. And some of that, you know, for those of you who are, I'm going to say 35 and up, know the expression, the Darlington stripe. What is that for those who are less than 35? Used to come off the corners there, and if you weren't brushing the wall, you were running the wrong line. And at the end of that race, you couldn't read the numbers, you couldn't read the quarters or the fenders, and you had all different colors from the other teams. And that was a Darlington stripe. But the sponsors were upset with that. TV was upset with that. We need to see the sponsors. People are paying for that. People, they need the logos. You know, it's like when and I think it was NBC when they first started televising, I could be wrong, and they blurred out the sponsors on the cars because they didn't pay to have that commercial. And that was a whole big thing, and NASCAR got involved, and I think they only did it for 2 races. But that was when racing, I'm not saying beating and banging a competitor, but coming off the corner and the sparks line, man, the fans are loving that stuff. But they don't allow that anymore. You can't touch, you can't bump and grind, and you know, and they're inconsistent with the bump and grind calls, and you know, and I hate to say it depends on what number is on the door and the roof, but sometimes it does. And you know, like Jay Slay says, you know, you got cookie cutter tracks, and that's not fun at all. All these mile and a halves that were built in the last 15 years, that's not any fun. The other tracks were unique. Martinsville, it was 2 drag strips and a turn at each end, you know, and tight corners. Darlington, one end the turns are narrow, one end it's wide. You know, Dover, you're coming off the corner, going downhill, going uphill, and unless you've been there, you don't realize that because TV doesn't show that. The tracks were unique. You know, Daytona, you know, where it's 31-degree banking and the tri-oval. You know, think about that. You know, then you go to Talladega and it's 33 degrees and it's just a little bit bigger, with Daytona being 2.5 miles around, with Talladega is 2.66. It's only like 1/10 and a half, almost 2/10 of a mile. Not a big difference, but it is. You know, and that's what made it interesting. The setups, go to all the different tracks and having to do the setups and getting the setups right. And the fans, the way they watch the race, or where they sit, you know, it's just, they need to get away from that. They need to race some more short tracks. Bring back North Wilkesboro. Bring back Richmond. Bring back some of those racetracks where the races were fun to watch. You know, and you get these 2.5 miles, even these mile-and-a-half cookie-cutter tracks. You know, and once they get going, they're going 195, 200 down the straightaways when they get right before they go into the corner. But you know what? you get out of that draft, you have to pit out a sequence, and you're getting lapped. You're getting lapped, you know? And like 22 figure, when they do tech, lose the lasers and get a square, I love it, 6-inch wooden block, run it under the car and take away the spotter. Let the best drivers get their car to the front. And I don't disagree with that. I do not disagree with it. And I've said it, especially on the little tracks. By the time the spotter hits the button, says it, that car just went the length of 2 football fields. So what does he tell them? You know, you go to a quarter-mile bull ring or a half-mile bull ring, you know, the only thing you could tell them is if the car's on the front stretch and the wreck's in the back stretch, wreck in the back stretch, backing down, flags out. You know, other than that, the spotters are talking too much, and they're giving them, you know, and I know the way these seats and helmets are, you can't move, so you can't see anything. Your head is, you know, wedged into the restraints in the seats, and so you can't, like, you know, go this way because you're looking at the restraint, and the mirrors aren't like they used to be, because I remember some of the windows that we had, and 22 figure 8 can probably vouch for this. You had 4 mirrors in a strip, and you could see out every window depending on how the mirror was tilted. And they don't have that anymore. They just have a mirror. And then there's so much stuff in the car. What are they really seeing? So the spotters are really driving the cars. And I don't know if that's good. I don't want to put any spotters out of work. You know, I have family that are spotters, so you know they make their living that way. But it's one of those things that you have to look at and take a look at and let this sport grow the way it was growing. Bring stock cars back in. Let the fans know, hey, yo, that's definitely a fusion. I think I'm gonna. Oh, they won today. Oh, maybe I'll go buy one. Hey, that's definitely, you know, a Camaro. You know, and because people are funny, they're brand loyal. They're brand loyal, and if they see something that's winning, that's successful, they want to associate with that. How many people started eating Kellogg's cornflakes because Terry Labonte was the champion way back when? Think about those things. How many people want to get oil at their local, you know, auto parts store, and because STP was on Richard Petty and he was winning everything in sight, I think I'll take the STP. It's one of those things. Anyway, I know we were supposed to go over the results from Phoenix, so we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to give you the results from Phoenix when we come back.
Hey guys, this is Jibs from Ocean's 8, Alaska, and you're watching Inravio TV Network.
Hey, I'm Raul Panther.
And I'm Commander B. Hawkins.
And I'm Russ Weller. We're some of the proto men. If we see you without this bracelet, you're punching the But if you have this bracelet from Inravio.com, you can win $100.
Put one of these on, or else.
What's up, guys? This is Assuming We Survive, and you're watching Inravio TV Network.
I love commercials. They pay the bills, and I get to read the chat room. Jay Slice brings up a good question. And his question, I wonder how many of the drivers that retired over the last few years have to do with the chase format. I'll tell you, I don't think any of them would admit it, but I think a couple. And why do I say that? Because you want to race. You're going for wins and all of that kind of good stuff. And some of these guys, you're in the final round of 16, and all right, now you at least have a shot, and you have a bad night, bad afternoon, whatever you want to call it, and you're done. You have one bad night. But under the old format, when I say format, it was the guy with the most points at the end. If you have a bad night with 16 races to go, you still have a shot at it. So I don't know. It's just one of those things that NASCAR really needs to take a look at. But we're going to give you the results. We're going to start with the Xfinity. But before we do that, I said earlier I got two very special people I want to give a shout out to. I want to wish a very happy birthday to my daughters, Erin and Kerry, the twins. They turned 26 on Wednesday. Erin is the chief scorer at the Riverhead Raceway and also owner of Vinnie Delaney's number 17 INEX Legend car, which was the 2016 champion at the Riverhead Raceway. And my daughter Kerry also, she is the Riverhead Raceway, one of the Riverhead Raceway track photographers. They turned 26 on Wednesday. Happy birthday. My girls, they basically grew up at the racetrack. I believe their first races, they were 2 when they started coming. And that's only because they were born in March and they were preemies. And they really wasn't a place to bring preemies when they were just born. So I believe their first event was when they were 2 years old. And I used to call them track rats because they were running all over the place while I was doing my thing. And then Erin has been in the score tower since she's about 10. And Kerry sold programs, ate a lot of junk food, and played with her friends and met a lot of good people. So again, happy birthday to my girls. I love you girls. I'm so proud of the women that you have become. And you just jumped into the family racing business, which in our family we've been doing this for like 80 years since the 40s. So I wish you guys continued success, and I'm so proud of you guys. Anyway, the Xfinity was at Phoenix, and there was a rain delay, a couple of rain delays, but when the checker flag fell, Brad Keselowski was the winner, Justin Allgaier was second, Kyle Busch third, Christopher Bell was fourth, J. McMurray managed the top 5 out of that, Daniel Hemrick was sixth, Matt Tifft, 7th, Cole Custer, 8th, Elliott Sadler, 9th, and Tyler Reddick rounding out the top 10. The first red flag for rain was 1 hour and 35 minutes at lap 47. And then the second rain delay was only 26 minutes on lap 87, causing red flags. And TV switched to the sister station to get the entire race on TV. So thank you to the TV people for doing that. And I had thought the race was over. I was channel surfing, and there it was. So thank you. But good race. Keselowski coming down with that win. It was an exciting race, if I do say so. I want to say, at least in my opinion, a very exciting race. So can't say that much for the Cup race, which we're going to talk about right now, the Cup race. We had at Phoenix Kevin Harvick, 3 in a row. Whoa. And everybody was in social media. I think the only people that ever won like 3 or 4 in a row, and they're going through the names. Richard Petty, 1967, he had 27 wins, 10 in a row, 2 on Long Island at Bridgehampton and Islip. But anyway, the results, Kevin Harvick was the winner, followed by Kyle Busch, Chase Elliott third, Denny Hamlin was 4th, Martin Truex Jr. was 5th, Clint Boyer 6th, Eric Almirola 7th, Daniel Suarez 8th, Eric Jones 9th, Kurt Busch rounding out the top 10. Stewart-Haas Racing, they're very happy again this week. 4 cars in the top 10. Kevin Harvick with the win, Clint Boyer 6th, Eric Almirola 7th, and Kurt Busch 10th. I'll tell you, there's no shortage of talent in that racing team with Stewart-Haas Racing, and I'll tell you what, you don't see a lot of that, but the thing that does concern me is, should one owner have 4 cars? I'm just saying. It's like Hendrick with his. If Rick Hendrick and Tony Stewart decided, let's get out of racing and start an airline, I'm not saying that's what they're going to do, but if they did, you'd lose like 8 cars in a series that's already struggling to fill the field. And that reminds me of a story when I'm sitting in the hauler in the NASCAR Weather Modified Tour with Ed Cox, and some of the NASCAR brass came in, and they're going to talk to us. And we're talking about things, and one of the gentlemen says, how strong do you think this series is right now? Oh, we're good. We got 20-some-odd races, blah, blah, blah. We're going on, and all the good stuff. Good car counts, this, that, and the other thing. And the guy goes, you really think so? He goes, more than a third of your races are at 2 racetracks. Mentioned in the Thompson Motorsports Park at Stafford Motor Speedway, which at the time had 4 races at Stafford and 5 at Thompson. And he says, if they pull out, you're in trouble. And we kind of didn't think too much about it because we were good wooden soldiers, so we said, oh, okay, we'll take a look at that. And then some of the tracks that always had one pulled out, and this one pulled out, and that one pulled out. And before you know it, Stafford gave up a show or 2. Thompson gave up a couple of shows. And you're like, whoa. Well, they said it. I look back at that meeting. I thought they were nuts. I look back, and they were right. And when you have a schedule of 14 and 15 races in the modifieds, and yet they're getting decent car counts, but they're still not filling the field. At Myrtle Beach, I think they have a nice car count. I think the last time I saw the entry list was 38 cars. And there's got to be some people going home, which is kind of a shame to go all the way to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, with why that's even on the schedule is beyond me. But the powers that be that make the schedules thinks it was a good idea. So it'll be interesting to see moving forward. And Lee USA Speedway, I can't remember the last time they had a touring race, and it's got to be over 25 years, if I'm not mistaken. And part of that was NASCAR and Red McDonald just didn't see eye to eye. And I'm hoping this new owner, Mr. Wren, I hope he takes a look at that and says, let's get a race here. Let's get a tour race here in 2019 or 2. They lost that big one in New Hampshire Motor Speedway on the tour, and they're going to have a big one in September, and we'll talk about that later as we get closer to it. But when you think about that, you think about a track like Lee, 3/8 mile, perfect for the modifieds, perfect. 3/8, 5/8, 3/4 like Richmond, perfect for them. And I'll tell you what, that would be interesting to see, and I hope that happens. I really do hope that happens, but. We'll see. We'll see. I just hope and when I say hope, the powers to be, the people who are making these decisions aren't modified people down in Concord, down in Daytona. They're not modified people. And although they get their input from the series director, Jimmy Wilson, and he gives them feedback and all the good stuff that's going on, understand, and I could tell you this from experience, the NASCAR brass doesn't want people who are going to rock the boat. They want good wooden soldiers, yes sir, it's all good, everything's perfect, and sometimes you got to be the guy that takes the hit and says, guys, open up your eyes, it's not good. Because if it was so good, all the other modified series wouldn't have developed. Why did those other modified series develop? They developed because of disgruntled NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour drivers. And I can remember being at the Thompson Motorsports Park for the year-end World Series event, and one of the series, the Valenti Modified Series, had more cars than the Modified Tour. And my assignment in between checking drive shafts, clutches, and undercarriage and transmissions was to go down and count how many cars were there. So not only did I do that, I came from a background in corporate America where you get the Heinz story, it's who, what, when, where, and how much, and all of that good stuff. And I counted the cars, but then I had another column where I put former tour teams for them, and I just went down the line. And I actually talked to some of them, and it had to do with cost. It had to do with excessive rule changes that really didn't affect competition or safety. It was just another thing that the teams had to buy. And the Valenti Series is a one-day show. The modified guys, they're racing Wednesdays, Thursdays, 3-day shows so that they could practice twice on Friday, practice in the morning, time trial in the afternoon, and race on Sunday. That could be all done in one day. One day. Like 22 figure eight. And I was just going to say this. You look back in the modified days of Jimmy Spencer, Richie Evans, Tommy Baldwin. They weren't yes men. They told it like it was, and they paid the price for it with penalties and bad calls. And they were rebels. And I can remember back in Tommy Baldwin's last season when he said to me, he goes, I'm starting a new series. I'm starting a new series. Coming? I was like, yeah. It's all I had to do is say, yeah, I'm coming. The rumor would mill, and I would have been thrown out of NASCAR forever. But that's what Tommy Baldwin was saying. Tom Baldwin, the 7NY. One-day shows. I'm a worker man. I run a business. I can't close my business for a week to go race for one day when they make us come here for 3 and 4. And the man hit the nail right on the head. And, Jimmy Spencer, even in his Cup days, he was not a quiet person. He told it like it was. And Richie Evans, although I never got to meet him, I heard he was the same way. But the powers to be respected Richie Evans. They respected him. And the same as they did with the late Charlie Jazombach. They respected those guys. And Charlie Jazombach and his family, they were innovative. And they made things that all of a sudden the rules either agreed with what they did or they took it away. And that's how it was in those days. Now, everything's filtered down. There's no meetings with the owners. There's no meetings with the fabricators, no meetings with the builders, and there's definitely no meetings with the drivers. They're just going to filter down rules that sometimes aren't the right thing for the series. And you know what? Most drivers today would not know how to fix their car because the drivers today, if they don't build them, and when they wreck them, they don't put them back together. And that's important. If you're going to race them, you got to be able to build it. You got to be able to put it back together if you wreck it. And if you don't wreck it that week, you got to be able to make it better. And those days are gone. All you need to know now is how much money Daddy has in the bank, because that's your budget. Anyway, it's like I think we got like a minute left. So I'm going to wrap this up. I want to thank everybody for taking time out of your busy schedules to participate in tonight's show, whether in the chat room, live, or during the week. And for those of you who catch it on Facebook, I thank you. I see more and more doing that. We do a little feed there, so that's good. And it's all good. And I want to, again, wish my daughters, Erin and Kerry, a very happy 26th birthday. And wherever your endeavors bring you this week, please be safe. Please be careful. Tell somebody you love them. Give them a hug. God bless you all. And we will see you next week. Good night, everybody.
Inravio.com. Inravio.com.